Baptists That Amish Chick. Let's get into it.
I don't know, you're losing it though. Reel it in.
Okay.
Okay, so like straight up tears.
I do.
Okay. On this episode of the Butterchurn Girls, Bethany is crying in laughter about a Mexican lady in Walmart screaming to her kids.
Yeah.
But we can only assume it's for kids.
Yeah,
in the back.
We don't know.
We don't actually know, but it was really funny.
We don't
really
actually
know. And I like how you talk like you're reporting it on the news.
Like
Interviewing.
she
So can you tell me what happened?
Well, we really don't know. That's what it sounded like.
Anyway, guys, so we're just gonna go with that. That's how we're gonna open this episode.
Oh, that's our opening?
Yeah, that's our opening.
Okay.
I think that's really funny, and we should add that. So, anyways,
So now we're gonna switch gears.
we're talking about so actually getting down to business here. We're talking about how to deal with losing friends as you grow and what that looks like, because I think we have all experienced it on some level. Like, I know I have. And wow, that laughter really got to me. But anyway, and so
It's so emotional now.
I'm just gonna cry. Anyway, so
This friend when I was 5.
she dumped me. No, I probably did actually. That seemed to happen a lot as kids. Did it happen for you guys where you kept like losing your friends every week? There was a new friend or somebody who hated you, or
No, it's the same one.
Leslie was too forgiving.
No, I hated her. But our moms were friends. And yeah, and
That
so
also
like we were
happens.
always put together, and then of course we were in Girl Scouts together, so we were always put together, and like teachers knew we were friends and would put us together, and I'm like, no. But anyway,
yeah.
we'd start Monday, we'd be friends, and then by Tuesday I'm like, don't like her.
Yeah, that's a very short turnaround period.
I
It's like
know.
24 hours.
I
Yeah.
know.
So, does one of you want to start with like a story that you have of what happened when you started growing and changing, and the other person in the relationship didn't? So
I have a good story.
Okay.
Because this actually comes from, if you've heard previous podcast episodes, I've talked about the previous church that we went to before my husband's faith started to transform. Right about when you guys' faith started to transform too at the same time.
Yeah.
Before we even knew each other. But I had a group of friends. There was like 6 girls or something, where we were all like, I started going to the moms group, even though I wasn't a mom, but I wanted to go to a community group that was during the day with women to make friends. And that's when moms groups are, right? Like I wanted to go when my husband wasn't working. And so I built a group of friends. And I remember I went through like some really hard stuff. Like I'd had miscarriage, like our kids that we wanted to adopt moved out. We had like other kids move it. Like there was just a lot of things that happened. And back then I was like, oh, these friends aren't being supportive, right? And what I need and stuff. And there was a lot of, there were 6 of them. So there's lots of stories I could tell from individually with each person of what happened with why I'm not friends with them anymore. But I remember specifically like when I figured out what it was and why I wasn't supposed to be friends with them anymore. And I'm like trying not to tell too many stories, but at the same time, like kind of go to the point. I remember like asking God, like, why was it like this? Because it felt like it was my first adult friendships, right? Like anyone else in the past I had been a friend was like one of my personal training clients, which when there's a financial exchange in your relationship,
There's a limit to the
your
friendship
friend.
you can have.
Yeah. And so it felt like my first real group of friends. And then I had things like, one friend would come tell me that they were mad because I wasn't talking to the other friend about my miscarriage. And since she had one, I should talk to her about it, And I had, so things like that, like I had, just situations coming up, right? Of different things. And it was all around the same time. And it felt, with a lot of hard things happening in my life at that time. Like, I was like, why do I feel like I'm being attacked by a group of friends and stuff? And I remember, like, I was talking to God about it when I was trying to, like, work through healing. But I was like, why am I so bothered by it, for one? Why am I, like, I'm not really around them anymore. I don't really go to the church anymore because COVID hit. And so we all stopped going. Right? I'm not around them. Like, why is it so bothering me so much? And I remember God being like, there are crabs in your bucket. Like, I want to take you higher. And if you don't know the analogy, like when you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, if one tries to climb out, the next one will reach up and pull it down as it tries to climb above it. Like you had a group of friends that were constantly like, you were trying to climb up and they were grabbing on pulling you back down, pulling you back down. And especially since I didn't really fit in with the friend group, right? Like it was a bunch of moms and I was at first not a mom. And I was a foster mom, which was very different. So their conversations, their parenting styles, what they did, what they had to do, what they could do or couldn't do was very, very different from what I could legally even do, right? And so relationships with our kids were different. And so like I just made it super clear to me is like I have all these like really high places I want to take you. And I don't want to have you sitting in this place of people that are like satisfied with, hey, my purpose isn't being a mom. Like for me, that's one thing. I don't believe you have, I think you have assignment as a mom. I don't think it's ever a person's whole purpose for their entire life. Right. And so the Lord just started to show me is like, these people were holding you back in this. And it's like, you never would have pulled away on your own. You never would have pulled away because that's so often we feel like we have to hang on to things as much as possible if they're in our world or if they're the only people that are there. Like we feel like we can't just be alone in our friendships, right? We got to hang on to that one at least until someone better comes along.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of let one straggle off or something.
Right.
And so that was a big thing where like I had to really, really learn and go through the healing process of that and learn that like if you don't have people that are moving forward with you, not mean they're doing the same things, but they're progressing at the same speed. They're cheering you on. They're not going, are you sure you should do that? Are you sure? Right? Like sometimes you either have to make the decision to create the boundary, to cut it off, whichever it is, or I feel like oftentimes the Lord will be like, all right, I'm going to set this up as a way where like it's going to get cut off because I need you to move forward and not be held back for where these people are satisfied and sitting in a mediocre lifestyle when you know that you want something that is so much more than that and to progress forward so much more.
Yeah.
So I'm actually in something really similar, literally from like the last, I don't know, month and a half, 2 months, maybe, where I literally did go to God and I'm like, God, what gives? Like, where did everybody go? Like, what happened? Cause like something like, I was like, this is weird. Like people that I would have considered friends are like, it's so weird. Like all of a sudden it's like an acquaintance in passing. And like, I'm like, what happened? And so it was one of those things where God's like, there's a difference in community and friendship. Community is like doing things with them, but friendship is more in depth. Right. And so he's like, first off, you've got to redefine those two things, but also like, if your community stayed the same, you would have no reason to go and do the things I want you to do in the places I want you to go. And so like, it's been it's freaking hard.
Yeah.
It like, we don't want to have this conversation and make light of it. Like, yes, of course we make jokes about like, just chunk the friends that aren't being beneficial, but like, no, it doesn't make it less hard because it really, it's kind of sobering for people that are
go through
important to
grieving. You go through kind of a grieving
there's a grieving process and you have to allow yourself that. Otherwise, like, don't hold on to that. Never hold on to that grief, like process through it. But, so it's really like, that's a really hard process. Right. But sometimes I think God also knows this about me, like that I wouldn't have probably pulled away the same. I would have shared too much information with people that didn't need it because they're community and not friendship. Right.
Yeah.
Like, cause there is a difference.
Yeah.
And so I would have shared too much. It's almost like it would have put holes in my bucket. Right. Like there's a lot of different pieces that God's like, hey, no, I needed there to be some separation because there's some stuff that we've got to do before you and I go and do this other thing too. And so, it's been really, it's sobering. It's freaking hard.
Yeah.
And so like allowing yourself that time to grieve the loss is like super important. Like, so we don't want to like have this lighthearted conversation about, yeah, it's okay. Just go and do, like we understand that it's hard. We've all walked through that. And sometimes we're blindsided by it. Right. Sometimes it's a God-given thing. Right. Doesn't make it less hard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different reasons why friendships end or shift and change. And it doesn't make it any less hard. It's a process that you've got to like walk through and work through.
Yeah, and it doesn't even mean like, we see those things happen, then we're like, all right, God did have to do that because I have to move forward and that person can't be there. But sometimes we're like, well, what the heck? I don't feel like that was the case. Well, maybe it's that case for the other person. And maybe it's not like you're holding them back.
No.
Able to go higher.
No, and I don't think any of my people are holding me back.
But it could even be,
I would have held myself back.
Right. And
if I was so connected.
And it can even be things like where maybe they have an unhealthy connection to you where they're not moving forward more in someplace that they're supposed to go, or staying focused on what they're supposed to be doing, like in their calling for this season too.
Yeah. And sometimes it can also just be, you're just going different ways. Like
Yeah.
you're literally just going different paths. And in order for both of you to do the things that you're meant to do, you have to go different paths. Like your paths aren't going to stay together. You have reached a fork in the road where it's like, this is what I need to do in order to do the things that I'm called to do. And then you're like, and I also need to do this in order. And it's just a natural, like not weeding out, but just
Filtering, maybe?
filtering that happens. And it doesn't mean that anybody's wrong or like one person's winning and one person's losing, or there's like this person is toxic and this person is healthy. Sometimes it's just you're going different ways, and that's fine, right? And that's cool. But I think a lot of times there's a like one person outgrows the other, or you are outgrowing your friend group, or and that can be really hard, because it feels, at least for myself, I've not always, but sometimes felt like man, can't I just have friends that will stay in my life with me my whole life, and I think that can happen. I think it's very rare that it happens, like very, very rare. And when it happens, you have a very special thing that is not normal or common, I should say, not normal, but isn't common.
For it to be a healthy one. I want to mention that.
Yes.
That can let people that they stayed in their lives. And you're like, I've said that the other episodes too.
Yeah.
Last few weeks where I'm like, you're still acting both like you're 14. You have relationships like you're 14. Like you didn't grow up. So to have a healthy one moving forward is super, super rare.
Yes. Yeah. Where you're both healthy and you're both, doing your own thing, but you have that level of friendship that your friendship goes with you as you go to new levels. It doesn't, and it evolves and changes, right? But you still have that connection with that person. And I think that's like, I think everybody should have at least one of those friends or two of those friends. Like, it would be amazing if everybody could have that kind of friend, because I think that always having to transition, and always, like, especially when you're a person whose growth has a value for growth, and they're always changing and growing and like going forward, and you have people who like are there in each level, but they never go to the next level with you. And so you're constantly having to like leave people as you go. That can be really hard. And that can be,
you'd be lonely.
Yes, exactly. And so, I think that also, I don't know, what do you guys think about this? Like, I think there's this thing of where you can choose to stay in relationship with someone, even though that they aren't, like, they have a value for growth, right? They have a value for that, but it's not to the level that you have. And you might sometimes kind of like go faster than them or kind of outgrow them. I think there also comes a point where you can decide to still be in a relationship with that person and just realize that they're not going as fast as I am, or they're,
Well, and I think that's part of it, right? Like, some things I'm going to grasp faster, like as far as growth goes. And there's other things that you're like, I think we're never going to be equal and even.
Yes.
I think that falls into what we were talking about being the same. Like, celebrate the differences. Like, hey girl, I'm proud of how far you've come. Like, you're doing really great. Like, encouraging that other person, no matter what, whether they're so-called ahead or behind.
Right. And why do we say that even though? Because like,
but we always like to quantify things. We always like humans. I
think it's just hard to explain too.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and that's the way that we.
Well, and how do you really quantify growth? right? Like, how do you
Mhm,
quantify that? And a head literally might just be they've been walking it a little bit longer.
Exactly. They might have just been there longer than you have, or
Well, and that could have been them walking into that sooner, could be your introduction to that growth that you need
Right.
too.
right.
And so you don't have
Yeah.
to be at the exact same place.
I think growth looks different for everybody.
100%.
I think that's the thing, that is a core thing to realize, is like, okay, Berlin is growing really fast in this area. That might not even be an area that I'm supposed to grow in, right? But I
Yeah.
can take that as encouragement for the areas that I am growing in. And like, oh, like she's killing it over here. That's amazing in this growth area. You know, how can I, how can I like get in on that momentum in the areas of my life that I'm meant to grow, right? Or even just celebrate her, like just celebrate the person, like, oh my word, you're doing amazing. I love that. You know, all of that, and never feel like you have to take on that kind of growth in your life. Because I think that can also happen where like, it's like comes like, oh, I have to grow in that. Oh, you're growing in that area. Oh, I have to grow in that area too. And suddenly it becomes this like keeping up with the Joneses in the growth area. Where it's like you're trying to keep up with everybody else instead of getting clear on friendship. Like, exactly. You're not, it becomes a comparison game. And then that's, you know,
That's a whole other animal.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then sometimes it's just I think also, okay, so on the episode, what am I saying? On the subject of, you know, you talked in a previous episode about holding things with an open hand. Friendships. Part of that is things will go and you won't, they will leave your hands. But
you're
will
also now open to receive what's next.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that open-handed attitude has ebbs and like flows in it, right? Where things go out and then things come in. Like
it allows for that to happen.
Yeah.
Because if we're closed fist, how much can you grab when your fists are closed?
Nothing.
How much can you hold, right? Like, so when your hand is open, not only can you give, but you can also receive. And so like people can like make their way out. Like that sounds, but you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
But it's real. Yeah.
But like people are free to go do what they need to do, but then it invites people in too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's a thing with like your energy, right? Like we made the jokes the other episodes about chunk the friends, because like there's been people that were honestly they thought they considered me a friend. I consider them an acquaintance, and so there was a lot of what felt like invasion in my life, right? Like boundaries and stuff weren't happening. And I think that's important to realize, where I was like, oh, when I'm putting a ton of energy into someone that I would really not rather be around, talk to, or whatever, it's sucking energy from growing other relationships I have. Like it's me holding on tight, like because I have to hold on tight because I can't let anyone else squeeze in there, because I am like worn out and overflowing with these other people that are in my life that are exhausting me. And so it's like you have to be able to like open it up and be like, you've got to like let those people go, or sometimes even chunko, right? Like you've got to like set up some hard boundaries. Like you may like.
And I think that, so this is the thing I was going to say in the previous episode that y'all came here for today. But even sometimes letting a person know, you don't always have to tell them. Actually, you probably don't ever have to tell people, because you're just opening up unwanted, unnecessary doors of like arguments and offense, and just like stirring pot where you don't have to stir the pot, right? But like where you tell the person, hey, this is where I'm at in life right now. And if it's a friend, if it's somebody that you really want to try to like stay a friend with, like I really want to see if we can make this work, let them know, hey, this is where I'm at and this is what I need from friendships in my life right now. Can you do that? And what are your things that you need, right? And have that conversation. And if they can't or don't want to, then it's like, okay, well then we're going to have to like go our own ways, right? Because we can't do those things for each other, or you can, you know. And if it's not somebody that you don't want to stay, if it's somebody you don't want to stay in a relationship with, it's just a matter of being like, I'm not available. Like, I have a lot going on in my life right now and I'm not available.
I got a second phone, and like, basically like, so a lot of people contact me through social media, right? Like a lot of us have friends through social media. And I was like, hey, if you have my phone number, you can contact me, but on my second phone, like, I mean, it's my business phone, so I'm not saying, oh, y'all have to just get a second phone for the heck of it.
Yeah.
But like, I have social media on my business phone, and so I treat them like, if it's on social media, I'm going to consider it a work thing. And so when I'm working and when I'm working on social media, I will respond.
Well, when you manage as many
But you're
social
like-
media accounts as you have, like,
It's true.
it is work.
Right.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
True.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I went to a place where I was like, all right, like, if you don't have my phone number, it doesn't matter if you're messaging me once a day. If I haven't given you my phone number,
Yeah.
then obviously, like, you, like,
You're
I need
not-
to let the world know, like, this is where you are on my priority list.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't even have to let people know why you're making that boundary.
Mm-hmm.
It can be the fact of like, you don't want them in your life anymore because you've outgrown them,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't need to know that. Like,
Right.
don't be unwise in the way that you handle
Mhm.
that. And it can just be, you can just make it a thing where like you have, like I said, you can make it, you don't have to make it specific. You can just say, I have a lot going on and I can't,
Not
like,
available.
I'm not available, you know, and leave it at that. You don't have to explain yourself. I think
Mhm.
sometimes we feel like we have to
I
explain
feel like
ourselves.
we're on this justification thing. We have
Yeah.
to justify why. Because I think there's
No is a full
guilt.
sentence.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think there's guilt around friendships ending because there is so much immaturity just in people in general. Because it's, you think if a friendship ends, like you need to be offended about it, right?
Yeah.
Or there needs to be a good reason why you're doing it.
Right.
Like good as in
Good as in it better be dramatic and a blow up.
Right.
And it can't even
Or-
just be like, hey, do you realize how many billions of people there are in the world? And I only have space in my life for so many to actually pour proper energy into.
right.
And other people were ahead. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and that definition of having a good reason usually means that you have to have a reason that is that makes sense to the other person. Like they have to understand it
and agree with it.
and agree with it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like they're, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I agree with that. No, that is just a expectation that's put on people that is not even a truth and doesn't have to exist, but it's there and it happens.
Mhm.
And then people, that's how like offense happens. And, you know,
Mhm.
like suddenly there's this big blow up and it never had to be that. It never would have had to
Right.
come to that. But because people feel guilty or like they should do something. So we're here to give you, the listener, permission. You don't have to do that. That's actually not healthy. And unless you feel like you really want to do that and the person can handle it, like that is, use wisdom.
Right.
Just use wisdom. And if it's I wouldn't do that unless it's a relationship I want to save or
Right.
see if it can work out. And then I'd have the conversation in the form of like, this is what I need from my, you know,
Mhm.
this is where I'm going. This is what I need from friendships, you know. Can you do that?
Which, you know, it's interesting.
Like
you said
calling
that.
people up.
Yeah. What's interesting is when you said that is I actually remembered when you actually, like, a while after I moved here, you sat me down and you're like, hey, I'm analyzing who's in my circles. And I want you to know, like, I consider you one of my inner circle people. Here's what I like expect. We're just like at a coffee shop and she's like, here's what I need. I think it required a couple hugs a year even. Like
I'm like, I need hugs. Can you do
Berlin's
that?
like, oh, I need 24 hours to think about it.
but like even like that, like you were like, all right, this is a decision like I've made. I don't know if I'm still there, but
Well, I
still in
haven't
that
come to you
circle.
about, you know, I haven't talked.
You haven't had a second conversation.
No.
What are you doing Tuesday?
But like it can happen in the middle of a relationship, it can happen at the beginning of a relationship.
Yeah, yeah. No, just so you know, you're still in the same position you
Okay,
were.
cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Am I giving you my list of what I
No.
I'm just kidding.
She's like,
You
let's
haven't
hug.
actually.
Let's
yeah.
hugs.
Okay, we need to come to a compromise. Can we do one hug a year?
Yeah.
Do like we do, just one nuzzle.
Yeah. Oh my
Nuzzle
god.
each other's
Nuzzle at
neck.
graduation and call it good.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. That's where I draw the line. But
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
I'm also like, have I ever hugged Leslie before?
Yes. Yes.
Just
Before we accidentally nuzzled.
You haven't heard the story. You'll just
Oh
tell
my
it.
gosh.
Tell them what happened.
Basically what
We went to hug by and we like,
I like tripped over the arm of the couch and my face
And then
fell
she
into her
was like-
neck
and she
and
was
it
like-
like nuzzled her. Like
and like everyone around went, what was that?
well, we were trying to pretend like it didn't happen, but then
And
our
then-
friend Bo called it out and was like, just nuzzle her with crap. Now we gotta like roll with it.
So now we nuzzle once a year at graduation, and that's the only affection we show.
Hey, if it works for you guys, I mean that's fine. Like, you do you.
We know it's
Yeah.
standing. She
But-
knows it's coming. She's not unprepared.
Yeah.
You know.
Right? There you go. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And like I remember having that conversation with you too, because there was really a time when God was like, I need you to be very clear on who's in your inner circle and who's not.
Mhm.
Like who's in the circles in your life, right? Who's in the bullseye, who's in the circle outside of that, and then who's in the circle outside of that.
Mhm.
And that was really good for me because now I'm going through a very similar thing and I'm realizing that a lot of people I thought were friends, I'm like, they're acquaintances.
Mhm.
But if I wouldn't have learned that, I wouldn't have been aware enough to do that in now, right? And in the future, and know and recognize when that's happening, like, oh, people are moving. Okay.
Yeah.
Like they're moving circles. That's cool. Like, what is this going to look like? And I've not had a conversation with the people. I don't feel like I need to. It's just a natural thing. Like it's just happening.
because you usually
and
don't
like,
notice when it starts to happen.
No. And then until you're like, whoa, what's going on? Like suddenly you realize it and you sometimes feel like, oh, I need to like reach out to them. I need to like make sure that we're okay. No, you don't.
Why?
Well,
I think
exactly,
that's an
that's it.
important question to stop and ask is, why do I feel the need? Do I feel responsible to, or do I actually have a
Mhm.
desire to continue
Am
cultivating
I a people
friendship?
pleaser who just feels like everyone needs to be okay?
Yeah.
Like, am I pouring too much into others? That could be a
Mhm.
thing too.
Yep. Yep. That is a very real
Like,
thing.
you don't have to look good to everyone.
No.
It's okay for someone to not like you because you didn't try to be friends with them.
Yeah.
It's okay. They'll get over it or they won't.
That's not on you.
But your life will be happier because like
Yeah.
you have chosen people that are following the path that you're headed on.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Well, I don't really have
I
anything
don't know
else.
that
Do you
I
guys
have anything else either.
Okay. Well, and I really want to, wrapping it up, like I want to give you permission to, if you've ever felt guilty about creating boundaries in your friendships, or you're like, oh my gosh, I'm outgrowing people and I'm like, why does it feel like everybody in my life is suddenly like I'm moving? That's okay. That's a good sign.
Mhm.
I know it's hard and I know it's painful and I know there's a process to that, but there's so much good on the other side, because as you let those people go, as you have the conversations you need to, you are making room in your life for the new things, the new people that will take you to the next level, or are going to be in that next level with you. And I really hope and pray that you find somebody who is a friend for life, who you guys will have that friendship forever, because that is such a rare thing. And I really think that it's something that everybody needs, And so that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We love having you all here with us, not physically, but I feel like you're here. And we next week is our special guest on friendship, and I'm really excited
So good.
for you guys to hear it. And we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
Bye.